welcome back to Steam Family Outdoors. Today, in part 2 of our preparation for Canada video series, I'm going to talk about my go-to lures for Canada fishing. Alright, welcome back to Steam Family Outdoors. This is one of my favorite topics, is fishing lures, and unfortunately a lot of budget, or fortunately depending on how you look at it, over the years has gone to buying entirely too many fishing lures. I love it though. This is part of the experimenting that I love to do. When fishing, especially, I go up kind of the same time of the year in the same conditions. So we're talking about water temps in the low 60s, fishing for pike, and that's what we're going to talk about in this first part. Usually in about 10 feet of water, anywhere from, let's say, 8 to 12 feet of water is typically where we're targeting big pike at that time of year. They're leaving the shallow responding beds. We're hitting weed beds in that 10 foot of water range is typically where we have the best success. So I'm going to talk through the lures that I use and have had a lot of success with over the years, and give you some ideas on how you can approach pike fishing going forward as you plan your trip. So the first class of lures I have to get out of the way is probably the Canadian quintessential classic pike lure, the silver spoon. Silver spoon, so I have some Johnson silver minnow. There is Lucky Strike, this half silver, half red and white. This is one of my favorites. Big fan of that as a spoon. And then this is a spoon that's probably had the most luck, and these were originally bought in like a 25 pack of spoons, where you had to put the split rings and buy the hooks separately and build your own spoons. We got these legitimately probably 20 years ago, put them together, and they put fish in the boat. My wife used this exclusively last year on our trip to Canada, and she caught just a pile of pike. So it's easy to overcomplicate pike fishing, so that's why I start out with the silver spoon. It's just a go-to lure that's super, it produces really reliably. It's easy to fish. And there's just no stones thrown at a silver spoon. You control it, you can cast it, you can fish it slow, you can fish it fast. Gotta have a silver spoon, probably multiple in your tackle box. Moving on from that, I'm gonna go right into my favorites, and those are Phantom Softails. So I have Phantom Softails, and I have a pile of these in both 6-inch, that's here on this side, and then the 7.5-inch Phantom Softail. These are, you can see that they're scratched up. They've caught a ton of fish over the years. These things are deadly. You fish them as a walk the dog style jerkbait. I've just had a ton of success, and most of my big pike have ended up coming on these jerkbaits. I think it's that combination of action where that lure, as you walk it, can swing side to side. The soft tail gives it a bit of flutter. There's just something about this lure that fish go bonkers over. And I'll do a kind of an in-depth overview on the Phantom Softail when we're up in Canada this summer fishing, but this is probably my favorite lure to fish in Canada. And if there's one I'm going to put on to my rod and reel to start with, it's a Phantom Softail. And I'll say the 6-inch or 7.5-inch, I've had luck on both. I've caught big fish on both. The 7.5-inch Phantom Softail looks big, but I promise you there are fish in the sub 30-inch range who will hit on that 7.5-inch Phantom Softail. Another Canadian classic, the Suick. This is an all-black Suick. I have to love the Suick. Run it as a jerkbait, a kind of a dive and rise style jerkbait. I've seen this just cast and straight retrieved over weed beds, especially weed beds that are kind of have some emergence at the tip. Running it really, really shallow. I've seen these trolled and be successful. There's just something about this really simple looking black Suick that puts fish in the boat. It's a classic, one I'd highly recommend. Another lure, this is a shallow invader. These things, again, they give a ton of action. They have that tail movement. I'm a little more hesitant to recommend this one as highly if you're fishing shallow. So if you're a fisherman who's looking more in that early June time frame, I think this one's just going to be maybe a little too deep diving. I like to troll this more so, or work on the outside of weed beds more like in that 12 to 15 foot range. So this is where maybe we've caught a late summer or early summer, or I've had to push the trip back a week. I want something that can go run a little deeper, and that's where this does well. It also trolls very well. Another lure that has become a favorite. This is a regular weight Bulldawg from Muskie Innovations. These are fantastic. You work, kind of let this go. You can jerk it, you can straight retrieve it, pump your rod as you're working it in, kind of bounce it up over the tops of weeds. Pike will go bonkers for this one too. I've had, I mean, this looks like a big lure. I have had this lure disappear in a northern pike's mouth. They will engulf it. They hit really, really hard on these. I'm a big fan of plastics. Other plastics, hook myself, that I'm a fan of are some of these that are a little more simple, like these swim baits. These are from Lunker City, and this is a 5-inch paddle tail paired up with a 1/2 ounce jig head. So you can rig this up on the side and run it just kind of as a swimming jig. So you rig it normal for swimming, or you can almost work it as kind of a jerk bait too. But it gives that flutter, it's that wounded fish-like look, and there's something about these soft plastics that really have something special going when you fish for northern pike. Pike historically were fish metal things like spinner baits, bucktails, spoons, hard lures, but these soft plastics, while the pike teeth will destroy them quick, they're worth fishing. Another one I'll use is like a 5-inch grub, and if I'm fishing a grub, I'll usually put that on a jig. Like this is a 1 1/4 ounce swim jig, and this paired up also has that ability. It stays weedless, works over weed beds nice. Pike will take this one really aggressive too. I typically will lean on these plastic lures, the smaller plastics, when pike action slows down. So when I'm not getting as many bites, I like to put those on and work those weed beds really slow, and try to elicit a bite that way. If I want to fish fast and hard, I'm fishing phantoms and I'm fishing silver spoons. I'm also fishing bigger spinner baits like this guy, another classic one, just an oversized bass spinner bait. This one's more geared towards muskie, but big bass ones work just as well. Or this is a Mepps number 5 Magnum Muskie Killer. I mean, this is another classic one. Other bucktails, I've thrown double number 8 bucktails as well. Do a great job. So these are the pike lures I lean on and recommend getting in your tackle box. I have a tackle box full, and most of them are just different variations of the lures I showed you, different colors, different sizes, and there's just things I like to have some variety in the tackle box. And even some of them are set up like, if this tail gets bit off, they do sell replacements. I don't want to spend my time in the boat reapplying glue to this and getting it to set, so I'll take it, throw it in the back of the box, grab another one and fish. At the end of the day, I'll take my damaged lures in and repair them at the camp, instead of taking time on the water to do it. So that wraps up the northern pike section. Let's take a look at the walleye lures. Okay, now let's dive into the walleye lure selection. I divide my walleye lures up, I'm really simple in walleye, into 3 categories. I use jigs and plastics. I use shallow crankbaits and deep crankbaits. So I'll go through each one and kind of where I choose to use which lure. Starting out with jigs, I like to use, just grab a jig first that's not rigged up, a 1/4 ounce jig. These are VMC Moon Eye jigs. Have been very happy with these jigs. Super durable, easy to rig. I like the 1/4 ounce size. Some people will go down to maybe an 1/8 ounce in shallow water if you really want to fish slow. I found that the 1/4 ounce works well even in that 4 to 6 foot of water range, and surprisingly enough, that's usually the depth I'm fishing for walleye in, is sub 10 feet of water. So that's a depth where this 1/4 ounce will drop, but it won't drop too fast. So I don't want to get up in that 3/8 of an ounce range. 1/4 ounce is perfect for me because I can fish it in that shallow water. It does still have enough weight though I can get it down in the water profile if I need to fish deeper. So 1/4 ounce has served me well. So I have a pile of 1/4 ounce jigs, and then this is a Berkeley power bait ripple shad in this 3.5 inch length that I'll rig up as a swim bait. especially if you're doing a drive-to camp. Canada laws that changed during COVID, you cannot bring live bait across the border, including night crawlers. So sometimes getting a hold of minnows or crawlers can be a little difficult. So I just like to have the 3.5-inch ripple shad, and this bounces through really well if you're fishing shallow, fishing off rocks. And we crushed walleye with these. Last year really fished them hard, was super happy with them, and now I have a full box of ripple shad. And I still do use some grub twister tails, but I was just so happy with how the ripple shads worked that I basically I'm going to go all over to ripple shads going forward. So that's my jig box setup. We get into shallow crankbaits. So again, most of the time when I fished, and we're fishing a lake river system, we'll fish jigs, or if we're fishing more in the river spots, I like to run the shallow cranks. We're still not getting much deeper than 12 feet of water, so when I say shallow crankbaits, I'm talking like a Rapala, shallow Shad Rap 7. I like that 7 size a lot. Sorry, I'm a little tangled up. Just want to pull one out. And I don't do a great job, as you can see, of getting these all sorted out. My goal is to fit as many lures inside the tackle, these little Plano boxes, as I possibly can. Just to get, again, give me the variety, give me as many as I can. These are lures for both my wife and myself, and honestly, you could probably outfit the entire camp with as many crankbaits as I bring, but these shallow Shad Rap 7s get down enough in the water profile. They give good action. I've always had great luck with the Shad Rap 7. So we have a shallow crank rate box, and there's some other cranks in there too, but I usually end up leaning on the shallow Shad Rap 7. And when I go over rods and reels later for walleye, what I like and how I kind of set this system up for going up north is that most of my fishing is done for walleye. These two boxes are shallow walleye, and they get the same rod and reel setup. Super simple for me to keep track of. And then we go into the deep crankbaits. If we do get in some of those spots that I fish at times where you need to get lures that need to be fishing 20 plus feet of water, it's nice to have lures that'll get you down there. I have not gone over to bottom bouncers, or any kind of rigs like that. Not that I'm opposed to, I just haven't had the need to do that yet. But I do carry some larger crankbaits as well. These are bandits. And just to get down deep, I want to be able to get down 20 plus feet deep, and I'll use a different rod and reel combo for these deeper diving crankbaits. And if we would start using bottom bouncers at some point, those rod and reel combos would serve well there. But I try just to divide walleye lures when going up north into deep lures and shallow lures and fish them appropriately, and to keep my rod and reel combos set up that way. I know there's some folks, if you're a die-hard walleye fisherman in Minnesota or any of the other plain states, you probably have a fleet of rods that you fish with. I don't own a boat, we don't pull a boat, we rent a camp boat. So for me, it's important to be able to minimize the number of rods. You'll probably laugh when we start going through rods and reels because it doesn't seem like I minimize it. But I only try to have about 3 rods per person on the boat at any point in time. And with 2 of us, it means we have 6 rod and reel combos, and we're in a kind of an 18-foot Lund camp boat. It's a great boat, but you can get congested pretty quick if you had 3 people or 4 people with 3 or 4 rods each. So my goal is to keep the number of combos down. All right, that wraps up our lure segment. Really enjoying putting these videos together. I hope you're enjoying the content. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the videos we're putting out. Next week, we're going to get into rod and reel combos. I'm probably going to divide that up into 2 series. I'm going to start with pike and then go to walleye. I'm thinking 2 parts right now. We'll see how much content gets in there, but really want to spend some time on that as we go through rods, reels, line, and leaders for each of those. So thank you again for watching. Again, if you like the channel, please hit that subscribe button. And until next time, get out there and enjoy the outdoors.